Vito?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Couples and Conversations, episode 2. We're so super excited to have you guys join us today. Today, we are going to be discussing some pretty hot topics. We're going to be talking about battle wounds and for better or for worse and all of those wonderful things. But before we get started, I just wanted to take this time to introduce our panel today. And I'm super excited because we have some special guests here and we have our normal panel here, and it's going to be a great lineup. So my name is Frank. My wife is Jennifer James. She is up there in the corner. We do have the Greens, which is going to be Jason and Christina. We have Fowler Nation, which is Toylise and Michael. We do have Tammy. We have them Crawfords, Erica, and Jonathan. Jonathan is not with us today, but he is here in spirit. One of our guest couples, we have Jalen and Janet Bell. And then we do have Deanna LaFay. I'm so super excited because as you guys know, social media has gone absolutely insane this week over the response to the Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, and August Alsina entanglement situation. And while we are not going to be discussing that specifically, there were some things that were said inside of that that talk that we just want to kind of talk about a little bit. So if you guys saw in our previews, we were talking about battle wounds. So we're going to kind of be talking about battle wounds in relationships. And the topic that we're going to be discussing today is there a limit to for better or for worse? I'm going to say that again. Is there a limit to for better or for worse? We're also going to be talking about is leaving when you are inside of a relationship, does that help the relationship or does it create a detriment to the relationship? So a lot of stuff to unpack in this hour. So let's get started. We are going to start off today with them Crawfords, and we're going to start off with Erica.
Hello. First of all, I wanted to say hey to everybody. Welcome to our guests. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Bell and Deanna. So I just wanted to start off by, first of all, saying, is there a limit to for better or for worse? So I kind of go both ways with this, and to be really honest, to give like just a stable, straight up black and white response, I really don't have one. Simply because I think it's just a matter of what are you willing to deal with? Like, what do you consider your limits, number one, and what do you consider what's better, what's for worse? Like, what is your expectation? So for me personally, Frank said, my husband is not here. He's actually preparing for our anniversary. Our wedding anniversary is on Wednesday. We've been married for, it'll be 14 years. And so for 14 years, there was some really hard, worse situations. And it was very hard. And like I expressed in our episode last week, it was to the point where I felt like I had to leave because my limits were surpassed. Like I was done. So it's kind of hard for me to say, is there a limit? Because I just think it just boils down to what your expectation is and what you're willing to deal with. Because at the same time, I mean, does for worse make me, feel like a terrible person, or does worse make me feel bad about me? Does worse make me want to do something to harm me or make me feel a certain way about myself? So that means I'm supposed to just accept this person as they are because they're worse. But I said in my vows, I would take them, for better or worse. And here I am, I'm still praying for them. I'm, trying to work with them, trying to be there for them. Like, okay, I'm trying to do everything that I can, but something is just not clicking. So at that point, I felt like, I had to get out the situation. However, we came back together, and now this is probably one of the happiest times we've ever been in our entire relationship. Like, I'm so ecstatic about Wednesday. It's crazy because we haven't had those moments. It took us so long to get to those moments, but I'm just kind of glad that I looked past it and we learned from it and we both grew from it. And now we're together, and I think we're probably stronger than we've ever been.
Perfect. So we're going to come back to you because you directly answered one of the questions, and I want to talk to you, and I want to go over to Tammy, so she can answer this question, and I kind of want to see how it worked for her. So Tammy, let's go to you next.
Me personally, I feel that there is a limit to for better or for worse, but that limit depends on the individual. Like Erica said, only you can determine what your worst is. Um, I think me personally, because the vows you say before God, I think those limits should be maybe abuse, maybe adultery. And anything other than that, I feel it could possibly be worked out, but it just depends on that individual. If you're going through something and you can't handle it and it's taking you to a point to where you're suicidal or it's becoming toxic to your family, then those are your limitations. And when you see those red flags or limitations, I think it's okay to walk away, to take a step back, not necessarily, leave the relationship altogether, but it's definitely time for you to reevaluate the relationship, maybe take a little time apart if needed. And I know that's going into the second half of the question, but I think that there is a limit, and that limit depends on the individual.
Okay. I want to go over to our newlyweds, the Bells, because they've been in the game the least amount of time. What are your thoughts on the topic? Is there a limit to for better or for worse? And is walking away a success or a detriment? What are your thoughts?
No, I'll let you go first.
I would just have to agree with some of the sentiments that were already expressed as far as there are certain limits and certain things that may not be able to be tolerated by some, and like abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse. Those are things that I feel it's not something that you always can just stay in, but definitely other things can be worked out, but it has to be wanted by both parties. One person can't just want that and say we can work through it, and then the other person is still doing the same things. It has to be a conjoined consensus about, okay, we both want to work on this, and we both have to see the problem, and we have to work on those things that we are going through.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to add to the latter half of what she said, I think it definitely has to be a consensus of both people, and whatever the issue may be, the other partner can't beat the partner over the head with it if you agree to move past it. If y'all decide that it's something that y'all can get through with counseling and with God and prayer and everything like that, it can't be a reoccurring issue again from that same partner that committed the offense. There has to be a new trust bridge built. It can't look the same as the last bridge that y'all built of trust and communication. And then two, the other part, the receiving party, can't keep bringing it up, beating your partner over the head with it and conflicting them again over and over. It has to be a process that's mutually moving forward as a team. So that's just my thoughts.
So I guess I'm coming to you, Jennifer, because I want you to respond to this. When we say it in the vows, when we stand before people, and the idea behind unconditional love, when we say for better or for worse, there's really no stipulations on it, right? But saying there's a limit for me says that there are stipulations on it. So should we change? Should we not be saying that? Or should we be saying for better or for most of the words and not all of the words? Like what are your thoughts on that, Jennifer?
Well, I feel like when it comes to the vows, in that state, like you're saying, for better or for worse, but for most people, they don't enter a marriage when they are already experiencing abuse. Yes, it does happen, but for the mass majority, they feel like the relationship is healthy, and they're saying, if we get into financial hardship, or if we're arguing, or if different things happen, a death or something, I'm there as your partner. However, we're mutually making this agreement. And so when you step outside of that agreement and you are abusing me or you're cheating on me, and I'm not saying, well, for me, I'm not saying that it's one instance, but when it comes to a relationship that you're having outside of this means that you're committing to something else. So if you have one entanglement and you can come back and we can work on it, we have the mentality that it was something wrong and now we're trying to work towards a new thing, that's something for better or for worse. Okay, we made mistakes. For better or for worse, mistakes or things that are happening. But when you are actively engaging in something, we have to redefine what this is, because obviously I'm not what you wanted, because when it was about us too, but now you're bringing someone else into it. It's no longer about us and to it, but there's conditions to everything. You can even think about the Bible. Jesus loved us unconditionally. He gave up his life for us. However, he sacrificed himself, but it's still up to you to come back on that commitment and submit yourself into him. Just because I loved you unconditionally, if you can't love me, you can't get the blessing, you can't get the paradise. That is a choice that you have to make if we want to be mutual within this thing.
Okay. The Greens, I'd love for you to respond to that. And I have another question after this, after we get done.
So for me, there's most definitely a limit to for better or for worse. And I really don't know what that limit is, because there is a lot of things that I can get past. And then there are some things that I cannot, but I don't know what those things are because I haven't experienced it before. But there's definitely, for me, when I stood up there and said my vows, I wasn't saying for better and for worse, even if you cheat, beat me, carry on a 5-year relationship or whatever the, excuse me, whatever the case may be. That's not what I was saying when I said for better or for worse. It was more like what Jennifer stated, financial hardships, depression, even, losing kids or anything, like for better or for worse, yes, but not abandonment, like moving out or cheating or having an ongoing relationship. But once again, I'm not saying that I can't get past this or that, because I don't know what I can possibly get past. And I do know that I try to be forgiving as much as possible. However, until I really experience something like that, I do not know what I can and cannot get past, but I definitely know there's a limit.
Okay.
I think I feel the same way, because I don't really know. I mean, our perspective might be a little bit different from a lot of people's on the episode, because for us, we got married later in our years, so we experienced things with different people before we came to each other. So we kind of have more of a sense of what we can deal with and what we can't deal with. If you get married at 16, 17, or meet the person you get married to at a young age, I mean, you really don't have that room for error like we had with other people. So our perspective is a little bit different. And I think based off of our past relationships, we kind of had an understanding of what we're willing to put up with, what we're not willing to put up with. For me personally, I don't know if I could deal with, as a man, I don't know if I could deal with her possibly, stepping out or having whatever, what is it? Entanglement, situation,
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I don't know if, because men are different. You know what I'm saying about mostly how we handle things and how we interpret and filter things. So when it comes to everything that encompasses forgiving everything, I don't know, and I think somebody stated you never know what you're willing to go through unless you go through it. But I don't think it's a situation where I went into it knowing or was willing to accept, some outside influence or, the way that stuff is going down with that particular story or that particular situation. But like I said, when you go through it, you kind of have to get those battle scars and you go through those types of things, but certain things should be kind of, taboo or off limits in your relationships. You can kind of keep things on a straight path, as much as possible, because we're all imperfect. So
real quick though, I do feel like men cannot handle what they dish. And I just want to throw that out there, and we can go back to that later
That was
after
like,
everybody get a point.
we talked about that last week, man. What?
Are we going there already?
No, we're not
No,
going
I was
there.
just throwing that
You
out
see how
there
she
real
want to
quick.
compound stuff. She want to put an extra patty on the hamburger. Like, nah, man, it's
Shots
already
fired. I see you. Shots fired. I'm coming to Deanna, and I'm changing the question just a little bit because I want to hear your perspective on this because you are in the dating stage phase. So at what point, when you are deciding that you want to get married and you want to move forward with this person, at what point do you discuss what for better or for worse means, and do you discuss it? I want to hear from Deanna, and then I would love to hear from other married couples. Did you discuss before you got married what for better or for worse meant?
That's actually a good question because I can't say that I've had that conversation before, but I definitely think now that I'm older and realizing who I am and who I'm supposed to be, I think that those conversations will be had organically, right? And just, counseling, just the things that I know are necessary. I think that conversation will happen organically. But I did want to say something piggyback off of what was said earlier. I do think that being in a mutual relationship makes the difference, right? Because the man is supposed to be the covering, right? And the protection and the guidance. So I do think that our society teaches women to give, right? A lot of what was said, the things that were non-negotiables were things that women usually experience. So, I mean, this kind of attaches to what Christina says. That's the real question about mutualism, right? Is it okay for me to do what you think is best? And the better for worse, because a lot of times that's a family decision and, moving in the direction of the man, or is it really us coming together and you seeing what you need to be for me to be my best self and me being who I need to be for you to be your best self? Because I think that if you both come in like that, then a lot of the stuff won't matter because you've already decided what is important and what isn't. And so the better or for worse won't be all of the extra stuff. The cheating, the irresponsible spending, right? The secret decisions, because you know what value you add to my life. And I've made it apparent what value I add to your life. So I think the for better or for worse will roll itself out if you pick a soulmate versus someone who just feels good for the moment.
Okay, Jennifer, I saw your hand.
It was just to answer your question. Prior to us getting married, we didn't. No, I don't think we discussed that. We did have that discussion, but I don't think it was before we got married. But even if you don't have that discussion, which I think it is helpful, but I don't think anyone really thinks about that. Like you don't necessarily think about it in that sense, as far as what is the limitations to your love or to this commitment. However, it is helpful. I remember we had the conversation and you told me that your limits was if you ever walked in on me having relations with someone, like that is your limit because you couldn't get that out of your mind frame. And I think that is helpful to know. I mean, obviously I'm not even going to touch that envelope, but I'm just saying, like, you have to know your boundaries. Even within relationship, there are boundaries that are there in discussing what that looks like on each side. Because although you said that's your limit and you're done, I shouldn't even be getting close to your limits. So what is our relationship line supposed to look like? What are we focusing on within our relationship, and how are we continuously building it to be a strong kingdom or a strong foundation?
All right, Toylise, and then Tammy.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I had to step away for a second. But just to answer your question, brother, no, my husband and I most definitely did not have any discussions about anything because, I mean, mostly everybody on this panel knows our beginning and our start. And, to be completely transparent and honest, we got married because we had a baby. And he didn't believe in being a baby daddy, and I didn't believe in being a baby mama. So if we're good enough to procreate, if I'm gonna be stuck with you for the rest of my life anyway, quote unquote. So we're going to do whatever we can to make this work. And so coming from that perspective, not even as we didn't even necessarily have a love foundation. There was no courtship. We were two people who were infatuated with each other, expressed that infatuation, and conceived a child. And then we tried to do what we felt was right, which I thank God that we had him at the forefront of our marriage, because we are a true testament that if you keep him in the front of your marriage, he will keep it together, period. So as far as is there a worst for, or did we have that conversation? Absolutely not. There are still things that he and I are still learning about each other, even to this day. And we're talking about 16 years later. There are things that we are still learning about each other. Do I have a deal breaker, or do I have my worst? I believe in my heart that I do, but and I pray to the living God that I never have to see that. But it's always my goal and my objective that I do that I'm not going anywhere. I personally do not feel or believe there is a storm that my husband and I are not equipped to weather. And I always take it back to our beginning, because if we can make it this far off of the beginning that we had, we as a unit can accomplish anything. Even if we feel like we have hit our worst.
All right, Tammy.
I can say that when me and my husband got married, we did not have that conversation. And I think the reason why we didn't have that conversation was we was just so fixated on being in love that we expected better than worse. We didn't expect abuse. We didn't expect, cheating or adultery or anything. We just expected, when two people love each other, they treat everybody right, and it's the way it goes. However, to piggyback off of what Jason said, now that I'm older and I have experienced that, and now I'm going through a divorce, I have learned from it. So in my current situation, we discuss our deal breakers all the time. That was in our first couple of conversations, what is your deal breakers? So he is fully aware of my deal breakers, and I am fully aware of his deal breakers. He know I ain't sticking by you through X, Y, and Z, and I know he's not sticking by me through X, Y, and Z. So I do think with maturity, that conversation does come, but sometimes when you're so deeply in love and you're just so fixated on love in that person, you don't even think about the worst, because you don't think they would do the worst to you. You don't think about it. So those are my thoughts.
I think that's heading over to the bell, so get ready. I think that may be dangerous though, because I feel like everybody, and I understand that you may not even probably can fathom what the worst would be. And even if, I told Jennifer very early on, if I walked in and saw her in a physical situation with somebody else, I couldn't get over it. And that's simply based off of the premise of that would be on rewind in my mind. Can I say for sure today that, oh, absolutely, I'm done? No. Do I feel like I will be? Yes. So I think a lot of times it's hard for us to think about what the worst can be. But I think the conversation is so important to have, even outside of deal breakers, because there are some deal breakers. You can develop deal breakers, right? So you can be in a relationship and you can have this conversation about, these are my deal breakers, then we get into it, and then new stuff just develops, because we as people, we change, we evolve, we get better. So if we have no premise of that conversation at all, because we are so entangled in love, then we are essentially, in my opinion, we are leaving the airway, the opportunity for disaster to come. That's my opinion. Heading over to the bells.
So I'll go first. We've only been married for a short time now, but I'll just speak back on when we were dating. Just because we did date for 6 years prior to getting married. And going into dating, there were a lot of stipulations that I had in my mind about what I wouldn't tolerate while dating or what I wouldn't tolerate in a relationship. If he did this, I'm walking away. You know, I'll find somebody else. If this was a situation I had to endure, I'm not going to endure this. And then when I actually did get into this relationship with Jay, everything changed. So some of the things that you talk about, like once you're in love, once you love other things about the person, when they finally make this one mistake that was your stipulation in the beginning, I would never tolerate this. Now your mind is like, okay, what do I do next? And one of the things that I noticed in when we were dealing with certain situations, it was more so, okay, it's because we never communicated. You know, when you're getting to that point of I'm want to step out of my relationship, or you feel that intensity, like I don't feel like I can talk to my spouse. So then you go and confide in other people, and that's where the breakdown starts to happen within your own relationship. So I feel like when you start to notice those things within yourself, something is, the communication barrier is broken within your relationship or whatever. I think that does help in being able to kind of figure out, instead of stepping out on your situation or going into something else thinking that you're going to find better. It opens the door for you guys to be able to communicate. And that's one of the biggest things I feel is needed as far as, thinking about marriage or thinking about or in relationships. That communication piece is very, very, very important.
Yeah, I agree.
And just to add really quick, I think a part of our deal breakers and stuff we develop, a large part of that comes from our family structures and our family background, how we grew up, how our parents communicated in their marriage or relationships, and how we watched and viewed those things as a teenager leading into our adult years. All those things play into what our deal breakers and stuff are, especially if you've experienced it and seen it in your parents' relationships and stuff like that. And like she said, it just comes with, I think, time, over time, deal breakers that you had in the beginning may not be the same. Like you said, you can develop them, or you can, deal breakers can kind of fall back or not be as high prioritized as they were early on in your relationship.
Gotcha. Christina?
So Jay and I did not specifically have that conversation, but I knew a few deal breakers, just if you know Jay, like I knew a few of them. So we didn't really need to have that conversation. Just in the getting to know him process, I knew what were deal breakers or what would be boundaries that I couldn't cross, or that I shouldn't cross, because then that would turn him into somebody different. So we didn't necessarily say, hey, what are our boundaries, or what are our deal breakers, or what are our battle wounds that we are for better or worse? No, but just in the getting to know each other process, you could just kind of tell what somebody could possibly deal with and what they're not going to deal with at all.
All right.
And I think, all right, go ahead.
We're going to Michael, and then Erica, then Deanna.
Just kept.
So deal breakers, we had no choice but to communicate in the beginning. We had 3 one-night stands, and then we had a baby. So we had no choice.
It was one.
It was one
It
night
was
stand?
one.
I thought it was 3.
The first 2 was just a fondle.
Oh, you sure?
I'm positive.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, we had a baby. And so with a baby, you automatically need to be communicating from the get-go. Okay. And in the beginning, we talked about, well, do you want to be in a relationship or not? Because you don't have to be a good father. You don't have to be a father. You don't have to be. Have to be together,
right,
for you to be a good father,
right,
and vice versa. But during our marriage, we had to communicate. That was one of the first things that we did. We talked. We talked about what we wanted to, what we were looking for. We had no choice. We were about to move to New York. One of the things was that Talise gave an ultimatum. Listen, I'm not moving unless I'm married. So we got married. Not to say and that's not to say that I didn't have feelings for her. That's not to say I wasn't in love with her. But
You wasn't.
sometimes, but sometimes, the question comes up, says, what does love have to do with it? Honestly, there are deal breakers.
A lot.
A whole lot.
A lot, dude. A lot.
At the end of the day, I love you, but what does love have to do with it? If you're going to continue to do the things that are deal breakers to me, at the end of the day. And I have all the love for you, but I have to love myself. And if I have to do this for myself, then unfortunately, we may have to separate. I hope we don't ever get there. Tolise asks me all the time, what would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation? And I always tell her, I don't know. I can tell you what I think.
Not effective communication skills.
But I don't really know unless I'm in that situation, because it's in the situation, it's during the circumstance that you find out what you are able to handle. And yet everybody says, and we all know the Bible, God won't put nothing more on you that you can't bear. However, he may think I can't bear it, but me on the other hand, that's a whole other situation. So I got to take some time. You got to take some time to talk to God and be like, God, can I bear this? I know what your word said, but can I bear it?
But you got to be
even
careful,
though it hurts.
He may test you and say, well, let's see.
And he may test me, and that's a test.
Lord.
But that's a test that you have to pass or fail.
But I'm probably not
with
gonna
God.
I'm not going to ask him that.
And I do have to say this, that if it wasn't God, if our focus wasn't on our faith, and we came from different backgrounds in faith, we came from different. She grew up in the church, I didn't. She was baptized when she was out the womb. I was baptized when I was 20. So I came as a baby of Christ. She was already mature, or at least should have been. Let me say that. But
I was partially
mature. But
I was like a preteen.
But yeah.
Thank you, guys. Reclaiming your time. We're heading over to Erica.
Just to kind of piggyback off of everything that's already been said. So I'm kind of like in the same boat with Tammy. Like Jonathan and I, we did not have that discussion early on because we were basically babies when, we started dating. We've been together technically 22 years. So we've been together since we were 16. So we didn't really have that conversation to say what the deal breakers were. But I am a firm believer, because I know I said it early on, like, oh no, I'm not going to tolerate this, or I'm not going to take that. But I'm a firm believer that experience is the best teacher. And I had to go through those worrisome situations that I explained earlier for me to even understand how I was able, or how I would be able to deal with them. And I think just kind of piggybacking on what Michael said earlier, like really what's love got to do with it. But I think my biggest thing was when I got married, my vows wasn't just to Jonathan. I made a vow, and I don't even really care about the people that was there. I made a vow to God. So that was the most important piece of it to me was, I'm doing this and I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with because I made a vow to God that I would deal with this man for better or for worse. But it got to the point where I had to start, like I said, praying about it, being in the situations, it becoming a total embarrassment. And it was like, no, I don't think God expected for me to go through this. So I had to reflect on what it was that I was going through, and the deal was broken. So it was, and I know we'll talk about that, in the latter part of this discussion, but I had to get out of it in order to get myself together to know what I'm able to deal with now. Because even then I felt like that was the worst, but I still don't really feel like we've hit our worst. I felt that was worse at the moment because, like I said, we were 7 years in. And I felt like at this point, somewhere, somebody should have grew up somewhere, not even just him, me too, but just allowing myself to go through those situations. Somewhere, somebody should have grew up in this relationship for us to be better. And I had to get away from it to reflect on myself, to get myself together. And while I made that vow to God, that was the most important part to me, which is what was keeping me there. But at the same token, I know God didn't expect for me to go through that.
Okay,
and that's
Deanna.
So I just wanted to say that because I am dating, I'm finding that organic conversations are better when you wait until something happens and then you address it, versus now it's like we date, I'm telling you what I'm looking for in the next year, I'm telling you what I like, what I don't like, you just going through this interview, all this, and you give your life story in 3 days, and then it's like, okay, so what are we supposed to do now, versus you just letting that person unfold. And so I think as you learn that person, you'll figure out if what the better side of them is, what the worst side of them is, as you get to know them. Because I think when you say, oh, I would leave you if you cheat, well, some people, as soon as you say cheat, well, I didn't cheat, I kissed her. Or some people, once you give them limits, they'll go to that limit, right to the edge of that limit, right? And I think that when it's more organic, you have a chance to create real intimacy versus you just walking on eggshells, trying not to do, the things that you said you didn't like, even if I'm still trying to work through how to let that go.
So I'm going to say this, and I really did not want to start the whole male versus female, husband versus wives debate thing, but I'm going to say this, since my sister Christina brought it up. It is my belief that women have no issues at all whatsoever with identifying, magnifying, blowing up, and putting names and all kind of stuff on the flaws of men. But when men do it to women, it is abuse. It is, why are you talking to me in a way that does not exemplify my queendom? And
I'm next,
all of
bro.
these things,
I'm next.
It's like,
But you not, Jason.
I'm sorry, reclaiming everybody's time because I have the floor.
Hey, you forgot, you didn't give me my chance. I'm going right after you, bro. Speak.
Reclaiming. So when it's been my experience that is how it is. And again, I didn't want to start the great gender debate, but here we are. So why is that? Why is that seems to be the situation? And I saw 97 hands. So I'm just going to start with Tammy because she was next, and then we'll go to the Greens.
First off, I just want to say, to piggyback off of Michael, love is not enough. Love is, at this point in my life, love is not enough, because I've been in a situation where I loved, and I end up not loving myself. So love in a relationship is not enough. Mills, what you talking about?
Frank.
I'm sorry, Frank. What you are talking about girls, women, magnifying things, the truth is the truth. Period. I don't magnify anything. Abuse is abuse. Adultery is adultery. If you don't want it called that, don't do the shit. Excuse my language.
I agree with that. However,
it's not no magnify nothing. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Reclaiming your time. Go on to Greens. Greens.
So nah, man. What? Relax. No, because to your point, when it comes to things that are traditional or things that are standard and things that have always supposedly have been known about the relationship between men and women, in my experience with my wife and other women that I've been with,
just your wife.
Every woman I've ever been with, been around, every dude I've ever spoke to says the same exact thing. It's what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander when it comes to the experience with women. It's almost like they want to take out the tradition of men and women relations only when it benefits themselves, only when the door needs to be open, only when it comes to the law, only when it comes to whatever the case may be. But it's basically when it's to their benefit. And so a lot of the issues that we have in our relationship, I can't speak for anybody else's relationship, is trying to knock those barriers and create different standards rather than what we've already been told or taught throughout our course of life. And I think Jalen pointed out, and that's, if you notice in the past episodes that we've had, I've always stated that the past and what you've been through when you're growing up has a lot to do with how you react and how you act in your marriage. And from my statement last week, a lot of it has to do with what you experience and the trauma or toxic, whatever the environment that you grew up around, a lot of that stuff is a carryover into your relationship. So it's important to understand that and to understand what triggers or what types of things that you won't deal with and why you won't deal with them. A lot of it has to do with what you saw with your mother and your father. And the majority of relationships, unfortunately, in our community, there weren't many good examples. And so a lot of us in our generation are scrambling, trying to figure out what these answers or what these things are, because without any example, you're basically coming from scratch. And a lot of times a meal made from scratch doesn't always taste good. So at the end of the day, you know, you have to try to figure out what's your level of normalcy, or what's your level of, what's your foundation? Because I mean, if you can't go by what your parents did or your parents' parents did or your aunt, your uncles, or anybody around you, you're basically drawing at straws trying to figure out what's the best way to handle this relationship with this person that has a totally different background than somebody you have no clue of knowing. So a lot of the things that are in society and in the environment, you kind of 10 seconds. A lot of different things that you experience, you kind of got to understand, okay, what am I willing to deal with while I'm in the relationship? Sometimes before the relationship, like Diana LaFay basically said, Diana LaFay, what she stated basically is the same thing, because you can say what you're not willing to put up with or what you don't want, either from a past relationship or from your parents. But when you get in, it's something totally different.
Thank you. So back to the question that you asked, Frank, I completely disagree, because it's the men who cannot take what they give out. So I know we're not discussing the Will and Jada thing, but just to tiptoe back on that real quick.
Why are you discussing?
Just to tiptoe back to that. Well, forget them, just in general. If men cheat all the time, they, for the most part, if you look at the statistics, they are the abusers as well, for the most part. So let a woman go out and have one little teensy beensy entanglement, and now the whole world is like, oh my goodness, she's a pedophile, she's this, she's a manipulator, blase splee. Men been doing that for the longest, right? And so she do it one time.
But she also gave a different. She also gave.
We're heading over to Jennifer. Go ahead.
Jason, I was with you for a little bit. I agree with the trauma on how they impact you. If you come from a toxic relationship and that's all you, I mean, if you come from a toxic home, that's all you know, and you're trying to stretch for anything that you can. However, that does not mean that women, going to what Frank said, that women does all these things and basically they don't take accountability, but all of the harsh punishment is put on the men. I disagree with that. Yes, statistics does point to men being the more aggressive, the abusers. However, men can be abused as well. Yes, men cheat. I would not say all men cheat. That's way too generalized, because that puts them in a category for some men that they don't belong. However, it's a equal playing field. It really depends on the person, it depends on the relationship, and it depends on the mentality. I think when it comes to men, I think we are equally doing wrong, but I think men struggle with taking accountability is the issue. When we have conversations, I'm quick to say, yeah, I did that. I may not change automatically, but at least I took the step to say I did it. Frank, don't reclaim my time. Don't reclaim my time. I'm still talking. Hold on, sir. Reclaim your time.
I just want to say you are not at all
reclaim your time. Thank you.
You're not.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Just like in the trailer, you petty in a different way. You couldn't just come out and say, yes, I'm petty, because you're petty. You don't take responsibility for your actions. That's all I'm saying. We are on an equal playing field, but there's a difference there. If everyone took accountability for their action and made the changes, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now.
Thank you. Reclaiming your time. I'm going over to Deanna next, but I just want to clear the air. Jennifer, you are not good with very quickly saying, yeah, I did that. You know that's not true at all. It takes you about 7 days.
Reclaiming your time.
Go ahead, Deanna.
Okay, thank you. So, I know all of you don't know me, but I'm the person that kind of like sees both sides. So I first want to remind us of like history. In the Bible, most men have multiple wives, right? So polygamy was a thing for a very, very long time, right? And then also in that time period, women couldn't speak and women didn't really have the rights that they have now. Because a lot of the things that I hear men complain about women is them nagging, right? Them nagging or them being insecure and wanting to know where they are 24/7. And then we hear men are cheaters and men basically only want to take care of you if they have complete access to your body, right? So I think that it really takes us deciding who we want to be together beyond what we've grown up with, what society expects of us, in order to create something that's sustainable. Because society does make it okay for men to have multiple partners, right? Married or unmarried, right? We there's a game that men play when they're younger about the count of the number of women that they can have sex with. Women, we're taught to just wait for our husband to find us, right? And a lot of times when we nag, it's me just repeating back to you the things that you said, right? So that is reflecting the accountability. You may get tired of me saying it, just do it. But then, that's the disconnect of you, because a lot of men, because men are so grounded in how much money they make and their position in society, respect to them is about tone, right? And about how you communicate with them. So a lot of times I know that there's a different response I can get just by changing my tone and my body language, right? Because we have to decide if we want the person to receive what we're saying or if we just want to get it off our chest. And I think the same for men. You have to, even if you are accustomed to having multiple women and you really don't think there's anything wrong with it, there are deeper wounds that women carry because society makes us believe that we're only worth the love that we desire if we go through a certain amount of pain. It's like, if you can work through all this pain, then you get the prize at the end, right? And so I think it's about finding the balance between the expectations of society and who you are coupled
10
with.
seconds.
Oh, I'm done. That's it. Just finding the balance for who you are and how you want to present yourself to society. Because I think that there's pros and cons to being a male and a female.
Thank you. We have Tammy, then the Bells, then Toylise, then Jason.
Okay. Something I wanted to say, as far as our ancestors and growing up with certain situations, we cannot go or live our relationships based off of the past, because our ancestors, they grew up, times have changed. First of all, men these days, they can not even, and I'm trying to say this nicely, they can't handle the woman of 2020 because they are intimidated by us. We are not the type of woman that be quiet. We're making more money than them these days. And that in itself cause a man to be intimidated and cause the abuse to start, because you're feeling less of a person because you have a woman that's at the same level or higher than you. So I think it's important that when you're in a relationship, you guys have to find that common ground and what works for you. What works for you is the most important. It don't matter what you saw as growing up as a kid or anything. You guys have to come together and figure out what works best for you.
All right, the Bells.
Okay. We was talking about accountability, right, between the genders. I think as it goes for her, most times, I think because generally women are more in tune with their emotions and stuff than men are. A lot of times, like, the emotions and stuff will be bottled up, and then it'll come out all at one time, and we'll be surprised by it. But I've learned, or I'm learning, and figuring out that a lot of times, like, she says something, a million times over the course of 2 weeks, and then it finally bubbles over. And as far as accountability, I feel like I apologize pretty quickly when I mess up or if I do something. I feel like a lot of times she'll explode on me, and then maybe in a couple hours or the next morning she'll come back and kind of apologize and take that accountability. But generally, I do, unfortunately, I do agree with the women that I think men kind of struggle with accountability all the time, because we feel we feel disrespected and proud. And, you know, since I got that pride and I got that tough skin, it's like, I ain't about to apologize to her. I'm not wrong. But even if, you know, you are right, as the man, it's important for us to, you know, listen to what she's saying and work the situation out that way. But
Okay.
pride really gets in the
I
way.
like Jalen.
So
Me
here's my
too.
thing though. So and who's next? Twelise, I'm coming to you next. So I hear what you're saying, Jalen, but when we promote that what you just said, I almost feel like we are essentially giving our spouses a pass for it to be okay, because I think we call it abuse. We call it abuse when it is a man speaking to a woman. This is what I want. This is what I need. You said this, you didn't do that. But when a woman does that to a man, we don't call it abuse. We say that she's nagging, or we say that she is bossy, and we use those acronyms. But when in reality, it really is abuse. So how come it's not when anybody is wrong, be it the husband or the wife, you come together, you discuss the wrongdoing, apology happens on both sides, and then you make it right? Why is it that I need to, just because I'm the man, I need to come and apologize, especially if I don't really have an indiscretion?
Right.
Yeah. One thing that I would say is, and just like disagreement, I would say I don't think that the abuser gets to choose how the initial response is, because especially if you haven't been through that situation before. So say if your spouse cheated on you for the first time. If I've never been cheated on, my first response may be to be loud. It may be to be, say whatever it comes first to my mind, not thinking about, oh, these words may really hurt him, or my screaming may make the situation worse. It's just my initial reaction. I think in a moment when we finally take a step back and say, okay, this person I actually do love, this person I actually do see a future with, this is, I want this to work. So let me bring it down, tone it down. I know I'm hurt, but let me figure out that situation. But I feel like sometimes men just like, oh no, you need to come to me just calm. No, you don't get to choose that I come to you calm. You get to get what I get. And then when we finally calm down and we're able to express those emotions in a calmer way, then, you'll get that nicer version. But in the beginning, I don't think that it's fair to choose how we react.
Okay, Fowler Nation.
I don't.
No.
Wow, that was a lot. In regards to men and women, I'm different. I think that everything is abuse. If she does it, she's abusing me. If I do it, I'm abusing her. I don't call it, I mean, we call it abuse, we call it nagging, but we both do it. That's just being honest. I mean, as far as what Tammy said, as far as a man being intimidated, I'm different. I'm not intimidated with Twelise. I love the fact that y'all fought for y'all rights to vote and all that good stuff. I want her to make money. Hell, I want to be home. I don't want to work. I don't mind my wife making more money than me. I'll stay home with the kids because I'm tired. I'm telling you that right now. I know God punished me because I had to work, but I'm tired.
Thank you, Michael.
In regards to her relationship, in regards to our relationship, though, I don't feel intimidated by her when she's repeating certain things over and over and over again. I do try to say, Twelise, well, haven't I not tried that? What am I not doing?
And because I let them know exactly.
And she has to allow me that time to say, okay, well, let me look at what I'm doing wrong. Why does she keep repeating that? And I think that it should be a reciprocating thing. It should go back and forth.
Thank you. Go ahead, Greens.
I got to reclaim my time because you cut me off. But anyway, now, I mean, I guess like a person can say what they want. I mean, I'm going off of experience. In my experience, my wife is not accountable for anything.
Bruh.
Not anything. Okay, I'm gonna let you talk. She's not accountable for anything. And she comes up with excuses in order to justify her not being accountable. And when I look at I just look at the relationships I've been in. I'm never just look at the knowing, what the trend is, just what happy wife, happy life. So it's not no consideration to the other side as to if he has any kind of joy or happiness. Every national holiday, every gift is supposed to be, you know what I'm saying? So the thing about it is, that's why I say that it's traditional when it's their benefit, when it's women's benefit. But when it's something that wants to be traditional from a man's standpoint, or something that he demands, it's not the same. I give you an example. My wife is very controlling and bossy, but the same things that she would say to me, I couldn't say to her, because it would be considered from her in a popcorn gallery, whoever, friends, family, whatever, it would be considered as controlling. I've actually been privy to overheard conversations where, well, what time you come? Oh, Jason gonna let you come home this time? It's not even a curfew, but it's just the mindset. And you have to look at, just somebody else stated how people interact in society. Society has told Black women, you have to be stronger. You never hear any other race. I'm a strong Asian woman. I'm a strong white woman. I'm a strong Jewish woman. Black women have been put in a position, and not rightfully so, but unrightfully so, with regard to things that happen in society, but it's no separation. That same independent mindset where you can't tell me nothing. I've literally been told, and it wasn't even a directive, it was just a conversation. I don't have to listen to you. You're not my daddy.
You was trying to make me do something I didn't want to do.
It was a conversation with somebody on the pizza line.
You was trying to make me do something I didn't want to do, so I was just letting you know that I don't have to
No, it was childish.
in that moment.
Right.
And
So even now, I'm not done. So even now in this conversation, she still don't understand and take accountability that wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. That was too far, or that was something she could have altered or could have changed. And so when I look at just our relationship and our interaction, a lot of it is based off of, she was raised by basically a single mother who was dominant in her relationship. And a lot of the pushback and issues we have is I don't have that type of personality. You're not gonna push me around just like I don't expect to push you around. And a lot of men that I speak to have that same dynamic with their wives or with their girlfriends, where it's a constant rebuttal, it's a constant headbutt. Like, it's not, we on the same team. So why do you look at it as it's something that I'm doing against you? And that's a lot of it, because they take what they feel in society, maybe work, maybe because we had a conversation a couple of episodes ago where Black women said they need to change their personality based on the environment they're in. So when they come into the marriage, they still hold on to that, I got to be stronger than you mentality, when it's not. It's both of us working together. And I experienced that in my relationship. And
it's
I know
not
that
we have to be stronger than you. It's
I
just that we do still have a voice. And a lot of times, Jason, sometimes we do feel attacked. So
no, that's only when she only feels attacked when it's something that she doesn't think is right, or something that she doesn't want to do. I do stuff I don't want to do all the time, and I have to bear and grin it, or grin and bear it. But with Christina, it's not the, with my wife, I should say, it's not the same. It's not mutual.
All right, Erica.
So I often feel, and I kind of feel bad that my husband is not here actually to speak up on his behalf. So I'm not going to go too far into how I feel about, how I do feel that at some points, men, they definitely cannot take accountability easier or as easily as women do. And I feel like there's been so many situations or, examples between the both of us where, like I said, I felt like I could have just been the most wholesome, the best wife ever. Early on, I felt like I was doing everything that I should be doing, at least what I think I should. And granted, we both really didn't have those examples to show us how we were supposed to be in a marriage, because we both came from broken homes, like no one was married in the home. But I felt like I was doing everything that I possibly could. And the minute, he stepped out or did the things that he was doing, it was never just taking accountability, apologizing for it, learning from it, and don't do it again. It became just this vicious cycle. So when I finally get to a point where, and like I said, it doesn't make it right. It is not right. That's something I will say. It's just me. I'm one of them people that believe that if you feel like you can do it, I can do it just as good as you. I am a total firm believer in that. And like I said, that explains it, doesn't excuse it. But at the same time, when you come to me Erica, did you do this? Did you do that? Absolutely. I did it. I sure did. Yes, I did. I did that. And I don't have a problem with doing that and taking accountability for my actions. Like I said, it explains it. It doesn't necessarily excuse it, but that doesn't make it right either. So I don't think that it's right. I think we're supposed to be equal. It's supposed to be a fair, level playing field between both of them. But I do still feel like men, it just take you a little bit more to, take accountability for your actions and then get shocked and feel like, oh my God, she can do that too. Yeah, buddy, I can.
Go ahead, Jennifer, finish us out.
All right, so like I said, I don't think that men take accountability for their actions, but I agree with Jalen when he was saying that his struggle or his view of men's struggle as far as taking accountability, it has to do with, some of it has to do with the pride aspect. Like, I feel like it's hard for you guys to humble yourselves and say, I was wrong, babe. Like, this is what I was thinking. And I don't think that you guys necessarily purposely do it, because conversations that we have had about times where you struggled to apologize for things that you did, you weren't malicious with it. You didn't intentionally wrong me or wrong the family. You were going left and you couldn't bring yourself to say, like, it didn't work out the way that I wanted. And in a sense, I kind of failed or I messed up. And so we're in this situation because of me. And instead of saying that, you try to go and fix it, but it just kind of screws us even more versus you just taking accountability. I messed up the first time, let's fix it together. But I think that also goes back to kind of what Deanna was saying within society. Like, women learn, and no, we don't perfect it, but we learn faster as far as intimacy and vulnerability. Taking accountability is a level of vulnerability, telling you, like, this is my ailment, this is where I messed up. And we teach men, you got to be hard, you don't cry, you don't like, you always tough. So going to your wife, that is a level of weakness or humility. And so it's clashing against that. Like, I want to be vulnerable with my wife. I want to work with her, but I still have this in the back of my head, like, this is me not being a man. This is me not being strong. This is me not taking care of my family. And it's all about breaking down those mentalities that we were taught that was completely wrong. Those mentalities or those views that we had of our father or of our uncle of how they treated their relationships in deciding, I want something better. So I'm willing to be different within my relationship, because I committed to this relationship knowing that I was going to have to give my complete self. I was going to have to be completely vulnerable. And I chose a wife who is willing to accept me as I am and is not going to show the world my shame, but allow me to submit myself in this situation so that we can grow and develop and change our situation together.
So thank you guys so much for tuning in. The conversation is just getting started. That's all the time that we have for our Facebook Live today. We are going to end the live and we are going to continue the conversation, and that conversation will be streamed on Facebook on Thursday at 8 p.m. So if you have not already liked, commented, and subscribed to the page, turn on your post notifications so that you can see how this conversation ends and how we address the last topic that we have for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you Thursday with Couples in Conversation.